Hello and welcome to a mid-Basho report of Kinboshi Radio. We're super excited to be jumping in a tournament that's been great so far. Nick, how are you enjoying it?
I think this has been a super exciting tournament. I know we've talked about it before, but the Sanyaku are looking great. Some of the others, there's been some lower level leaders. Everything, for the most part, people are looking great. This has been a super entertaining one.
Yeah, very interesting, and some things that were like interesting storylines are coming back into focus. First, I want to lead with the 6-0 man. Oh, I guess I should say, like, spoilers. If you have not watched Day 6, pause and come back.
After we already set the score.
Yep, too late. Well, such is life. But we didn't at least say the name, and the name is Asanoyama. So obviously 4-4-7 in the Basho in Kyushu to end the year of 2023. But now he comes back, and I didn't think he was healthy. So I'm just wrong on that because dude's looked good. How do you feel about Asanoyama?
I think I was in the same boat as you, where I just kind of assumed back in the last few years, he's had like a calf injury, he's had I think a wrist or an ankle, and it's just he hasn't been looking good. He's been kind of just sabotaged by his own health and injuries, and he's really turned it around. I think he's looking great. These are solid wins from him.
I think so too. He's been blowing through competition that, we would expect the former Ozeki to go through, but when he wasn't healthy last tournament, it wasn't necessarily looking the way we wanted. But really impressive today with the win against Nishikigi, who, even though because of that calf injury has fallen down, but we think Nishikigi is Komusubi grade for sure. And also just impressive that he's a big body. And in the match today, you and I were talking about, it was really interesting watching his tactical fight on the Mawashi, where he went for that left hand inside, which he prefers. Nishikigi actually put a great move on him to stab his right on the inside and force Asanoyama's left hand grip to the outside. But then Asanoyama made a move to go back for it, but it turned out to be like a double fake, and instead he went right hand inside, and that's how he ended up getting Nishikigi out. His brain is totally still there, and if injuries are going to be a factor with this guy, then that's what you need, right? You need the sort of the repertoire of sumo experience to come into play to make up for whatever physicality he's losing in his 30s. And he's beaten the mountain of Hokuseiho, the sort of physical forces of Shonanoumi and Kinbozan. He's looking good so far.
Well, I think you touched on, with his experience and how quickly he was adapting to Nishikigi. Nishikigi came at him hard. He was fighting well, but just the experience difference.
Yeah.
Where you watched him think through all these problems was so impressive to see.
Yeah, right, because that's, I could not do that. Are you kidding me? Well, there's a lot of reasons why I would be a terrible Rikishi, but in certainly the top 3,000 is the idea that, how can you move your brain that fast, tactically mid-match,
Yeah, it's been really cool.
Yeah, but hounding him right now are the return of Tanu Fuji. I think you and I think there are three guys. There's a whole mess of 5-1s, but there are three guys that we're really looking at chasing him: Tanu Fuji, Kirishima, and Koto Noo Onosato. Now, Tanu Fuji, actually, surprisingly, the spoiler was Wakamoto Haru for both Koto Noo Onosato and Tanu Fuji, who's having a grinder tournament 3-3 because he's fighting so many top rankers here. But interesting to see him knock off a Sekiwake and the Yokozuna. And Kirishima with a shock victory against the Mighty Mouse Midori Fuji. What do you think about those three guys and their chances to catch him, or how have you viewed their performances so far?
Koto Noo Onosato, I think he's really shining lately, and I know he kind of slowly ground his way up, and I think he is bordering on, as I think we had talked about before, being an Ozeki. Mm-hmm. He is really showing it. I love how when he finishes all of his matches, minus today's, when he finishes the end, he just dead face, looks perfectly calm, he was just very composed. I love it.
Yeah, I know. It's very impressive. I worry a little bit, not actually, but this tournament in particular, they kind of padded his front five. Uda at Komusubi is the only other Sanyaku that he's fought so far this tournament, and Uda is not having a fun ride at Komusubi. His only win is actually a Fusensho victory. So I don't know, that's a little worrisome, but he has looked dominant, and we've seen him fight top rankers and do well before, so I think the lack of matches against the top rankers is not actually a reason for concern. It's maybe just something to note. Because he has looked really good in those victories. And those victories have come against a former Sekiwake in Abi, a current Komusubi in Uda, and Tanu Fuji and Gonoyama, who are two guys that everyone thinks are these up-and-comer rising stars, and he's taking care of business against them. And case in point, he beat Tanu Fuji. So, like, a loss to Wakamoto Haru. Wakamoto Haru is Sekiwake grade. Like, that guy is fighting at Maegashira 1, but he's not a rank and filer.
No, he had one bad round, dropped him too low, but he's 100% a Sekiwake.
Yeah.
Go
on.
One thing I feel like we've really been missing with Tanu Fuji being injured was I remember especially day one when he walked in the ring, like I feel like you see his presence.
Yeah.
And you just immediately start feeling bad for, in this case it was Ura, but like whoever he's going, it's like his stature, his face, everything about it, you're like, this is the Yokozuna, which I think is the one thing I think Kirishima's missing that. Like when you see him, you get excited, but it's not like you don't like it. This is like you feel him when he enters the ring.
I feel exactly the same way because like Kirishima, it's interesting. He's thrown together some incredibly impressive Basho. For instance, in November, 13-2, winning the championship. Like only 2 losses is really impressive. That was a really good showing. But I never felt like he dominated the Basho. Whereas the vast majority of Tanu Fuji's Yusho victories, I just feel like no one stood a chance. Like when he loses, I'm shocked. As opposed to when Tanu Fuji or Kirishima loses, it's kind of like, yeah, well, he fought a lot of 50-50s. It's just this interesting thing where we have our current Yokozuna, who's definitely on the way out, and even this tournament does not look as dominant in matches as he has in the past. Like, this tournament, Tanu Fuji and Kirishima seem almost on similar levels because Tanu Fuji looks constantly better than his opponents, but never towering above them like he has historically. Like, the guy's not healthy. We all know this. And so Kirishima, yeah, I'm with you. I'm like, when's he going to take that step up? They're both 5-1, and I think they're both in the best places chasing Asanoyama here, but I just don't know about this switch that we're all technically waiting for, where I really feel like the JSA is trying to see if they can get Kirishima to Yokozuna so that Tanu Fuji can retire. Nick, thoughts?
No, I 100% agree. Like, I don't think we're going to see Tanu Fuji get his 10 that he wanted. Mm-hmm. But it is interesting, like you had said, where he's even acknowledged, I believe, this tournament, that he's not in the best shape. And he said, I'm taking it day by day, which is interesting to note that when he feels like he's, 70 to 80% not feeling the greatest, he's still winning almost all of his matches.
Very true.
Nobody below him can say, like, oh, yeah, I'm not feeling great, and then go on this much of a spree.
I mean, let's talk about it. So first of all, Takayasu, like these other guys who are kind of former top rankers and current top rankers. So, like, Takayasu not at 100%. He's like missing days and he's 2-2-2. Takakeisho not 100%, and I want to talk to you about him for sure, but like 2-2-3 and pulling out of the tournament, things like that. Even Hoshoryu now has clearly picked up an additional knee injury and he's lost back-to-back fights to go 4-2. So in this Ozeki picture, and then I'm just tossing in Takayasu as a former Ozeki, right? Like they can't do that. Like you're saying, 70% of Tanu Fuji is still probably 5% better than Kirishima, which is not intended as a slight to Kirishima, but more to say, like, Tanu Fuji is a literal physical mountain of a man, and in skill, he just towers above the division.
Yeah, I mean, he really is one of those just, for the younger fighters, like the once in a generation, like the level of skill that he has. It's
insane. Now, Hakuho's career spanned many rivals, and the biggest one for me personally was like the Asashoryu thing, but like, yeah, to have Tanu Fuji follow someone like Hakuho, it almost like dwarfs the amount better Teru is than his division. Like he at his best, he just should be considered one of the greatest of all time, but we both don't even think he's going to make it to his double-digit Yusho simply because of injuries late in his career, and obviously he lost a huge chunk of the middle of his career, his prime, with those brutal knee injuries.
Yeah, and again, I don't want it to sound like we're like hating on Kirishima. He's fantastic. He's putting up the wins. He's doing what he needs to. But I think when you see the transition from Hakuho to Tanu Fuji, the gap is so much bigger between Tanu Fuji and Kirishima
Yeah.
than it was with the prior gen.
I totally agree with you. Yep. And one of the only reasons that Hakuho ran up the total he did is, I personally, I really think that it's because Asashoryu got chased out of Sumo. That's how he was able to run up that score. If Teruno Fuji never blows out his knees, I think he's easily a guy who could have won 30 Yushos in his career.
Yes, exactly.
But speaking of Asashoryu, let's talk about his nephew Hoshoryu. And again, just to emphasize how much we like Kirishima, like Hoshoryu and Takakeisho, the other two Ozeki. Particularly, I want you to talk, because you were telling me before we recorded about an interview with Takakeisho and his injury status and what we think that means for his career. And we'll pivot to Hoshoryu. Obviously, like, this sucks. Hoshoryu appears to have picked up a knee injury, which is going to make this hard, because he did look good at the beginning, and he always looks good. I think you and I, and now I'm rambling, I apologize, but just like, I think Hoshoryu is one of the most talented wrestlers in the division. I'm scrolling down the Bansuke. Maybe he's the most talented. Like, the number of techniques the guy can use to win, the way that he can still physically dominate guys who are so much bigger than him, he's incredibly impressive. And for some reason, it doesn't all come together, whereas Kirishima does manage to string it together. Like, somehow, I don't feel like Kirishima is as talented as Hoshoryu, but he consistently outperforms him. What do you think about these two other Ozeki?
So I absolutely agree. I think Hoshoryu, especially when you look at the age difference and experience that he has, where he's genuinely competing with the other Ozeki, where, you know, he'll go like an 8-7 when he gets like his ankle injury or this knee injury. Honestly, probably is going to hurt him pretty badly in this, depending on how bad it goes. It didn't look great today. But like you said, he's still able to compete pretty well with that. And like for his age, he is wildly skilled.
Yeah, I think so too. The dude is still only 24. It's preposterous. I believe he was he still 20? He might have just turned 24 when he got to Ozeki, actually. But still, like, these are Takakeisho-esque numbers of getting this high this quickly. Because lest we forget, like, Takakeisho, we're so used to seeing him up here. Dude just turned 27. But now we're talking about maybe his career being over, maybe for his sake. I don't know. But Hoshoryu, same story. So young, has to still have room for growth. Like, I think generally in sumo, your peak is probably 27, maybe 28. So he's in his prime, but maybe just entering it. Like, I would say someone's sumo prime is probably ages 25 to 29. When you're in that perfect balance of having gained the experience against the top rankers, you have a wealth of knowledge in your head, like we were talking about with Asanoyama, but you also still have those physical skills. So very much in that range of prime, or maybe even just before it. The problem is if injuries take away the physical angle so quickly, like with Takakeisho.
Yeah, and I think I forget about Hoshoryu, like, or I don't talk about him as much. And it's not. I think he's very good, and like for the age he's at right now, like it's like, oh yeah, when he's an Ozeki, he's getting 8-9 wins. You're like, yeah, he's not. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. It's not. I'm not ignoring him, and I don't think he's bad. But I think, like you said, like when he's competing against people who have been going for so much longer, that you're like, oh yeah, he's doing well. And like I think as the years go by, like you said, with him just turning 24, like he's gonna rip people apart in the next few years.
I know.
As he just keeps gaining, like the momentum that he's gained in the last like year and a half, it's just crazy.
I know. And like, just as a point of comparison, I love Hirodumi, personally. And I'm always, like, excited. I'm like, look at him go! Like, this dude, he's 23 still. I think he'll turn 24 in a couple months. Hirodumi is less than a year younger than Hoshoryu. And I'm over here, like, being impressed with the numbers he puts up at, like, Maegashira 8, you know? Well, guess what? Hoshoryu's less than a year older, and the dude's already an Ozeki. It's very impressive.
Yes, and I think it's nice to, like, in his injuries, it sucks when you see him kind of slow down from that, but hopefully these are things that he can recover from. That's the number one thing I'm always worried about, which allows us to pivot, unfortunately, into Takakeisho with him having withdrawn because of his persistent neck injury that he had said was just something he's been battling for a while, and he felt like there was no power in his right arm, and hearing that is terrifying. Which sucks, is he's somebody, I think, presence in the ring-wise and dominance-wise, he's the closest one we have to Teruno Fuji.
Agreed.
But with this injury and the way he's talked about it, and they've meant like, I just don't think he should keep going. I think he's risking permanent.
Yeah. Nerve damage, spine damage.
Yes. And I don't want him to see. I don't want to see him go out like that and have to deal with this. He's only 27 to deal with this for the next 50 years of his life.
Like at this point, I'm with you. He's already gonna have to deal with this for the rest of his life. I was talking to my friends who are also sumo fans, but they actually both have work experience working with people with spinal injuries and stuff like that. And we were talking about Ishiura, because this is the same kind of stuff that was coming out of the Ishiura camp after that horrible throw. And then he came back in that Basho to try to save Kachikoshi. But then that's the last time he ever fought, and he never came back. And dude had partial paralysis in his arms, and he got it back, which from talking to them, like, I guess like when the swelling goes down, sometimes you can get it back more or less magically or whatever. But like, dude, if we're talking about a neck injury that's manifesting itself in your arms and hands, like, stop.
No, and he never got to be the Yokozuna that I think he desperately wanted to be, and he should have been, minus his injuries. But we've talked about, he's still put up some of the best numbers. He's one of the top Ozeki number-wise ever. And I think in his head, he's such a competitor, it wasn't good enough. But he is. He absolutely is. And I'd love to see him go out when he can still hold his arms up.
Yeah, agreed. When he can still hold his head up high, literally. Like, I'm with you on all fronts. And like at this point, it's not going to happen. Yokozuna's not going to happen. After the 2 failed bids last year, like, and now you can't stay healthy. It's just, yeah. Let's move on to before we move on to something happier, just as an aside, you and I were both stoked to see Aoyama come back, but guys, we're watching a swan song here, I think.
Yeah, and I'm sure my personal thing is I think that after doing well in Juryo, moving back up, this was going to be his like really big and great farewell, and it's not going well, and his knee looks awful after today's match. I think as much as you'd want him to go out on a Kachikoshi, I think might be it for him for good. The way he was struggling to get in and out of the ring again, I think that's going to be it for him.
Yeah, I know. Like, and that's fine. He, like we've talked about before, already has Japanese citizenship. I believe he wants to go into coaching. Like, he's going to be fine. He'll still be in the sumo world with us. But it just might. I mean, he's one of the oldest fighters in the division. Not the division, in sumo. Like, very rarely does a sumo wrestler go above like 33, you know? Like, last year, I believe it was beginning of last year, didn't we just see Aoyama retire at like 27? Like, this is the kind of stuff that happens because this is brutal to wear that weight on your body and then just smash other large men. But, oh, go on.
And I just feel like he's not, you're seeing it now. Like, you're seeing the age, unlike Tamawashi, where he's weighing down, he's slower, he's getting pushed out of the ring by people that are just a quarter of the skill and experience that he has. And it's fun. And it's another one where it's like, it's okay, I think, at this point to see him go.
Yeah, I think so too. We love that he got back up to Makuuchi, but it was an 8-7 from Juryo 1. It was the least he could have possibly done to get back into the division. But guys who are back in the division, speaking of bouncing back, I want to talk about, we're going to talk about 3, and it's Koto Noo Onosato, and Onosato. I mean, we'll throw Oho in there too, because we have to, because he's 5-1. But like, Koto Noo Sho very much looks like that little stint back in Juryo got his confidence back, and now he's maybe gotten a chance to heal up, and now he's got a 5-1, so he's one of these outsiders. Onosho has been injured since a few tournaments ago when he was contending up at the top, but then fell apart at the end and got hurt. He looks like he is maybe back to healthy. Onosato doing kind of what we thought he would do. He's debuting in the division. He's 5-1, but he lost to Onosho, which he probably shouldn't have, but it's not actually a disgraceful win. But these sort of low rankers, including Oho's 5-1, they're kind of making a run. How do you feel about these 4 guys who are sort of the also-rans right now? Which one of them do you think can make a move and really bang with the guys who we think are the real contenders, Asanoyama, Tanu Fuji, Koto Noo Onosato, Kirishima?
Based on performance we've seen, I think between it's for me, it's Koto Shoho or Onosho, and I would go with Onosho between them.
Yeah, he's got the experience, and I think you and I, we got a soft spot for Onosho. We've done a whole episode on it where we talk about sumo needing villains, and just because sports need villains, and it's why having Abi and Onosho, those guys, is good. Like, Onosho will never help someone back in the ring. He's always mean mugging his opponents, and like somehow all of it makes me love him more.
Yes, I'm in the same boat, and I think Onosato was everyone was super pumped for him to come up, but I haven't been like wildly impressed with a lot of his stuff. Like he's very skilled, he's got the body for it, but I think like you and I had mentioned while we were watching today's matches, he feels kind of like Hakuseiho.
Not like he's better than Hokuseiho, but I agree with you in terms of what we talked about is I think some people who in sports were born with all of the physical gifts don't always develop the same mental edge as other guys like Midori Fuji, Tobizaru. These are guys who have this like fanatical mental desire. Hey, Taka Keisho. That man is too short for sumo, and yet he just did it. He put the weight on. He's so physical. He made it to Ozeki. He was a Yokozuna contender and stuff like that. Onosato, I think that we have not even scratched the surface of what he is going to be. But just, you know, the Onosho loss, maybe that's him just being surprised at how hard guys come at you in this division. But like, that happened to him in Makushita. I feel like he got pushed around by guys he shouldn't have gotten pushed around by. But then his second Makushita tournament, he figured it out and upped his level. And then in Juryo, his first Juryo tournament, same thing. He got surprised by a lot of guys, lost a handful of matches he shouldn't have. But then his next Juryo tournament, he figured it out, he turned it around. And now maybe this is his tournament where his first tournament in Makuuchi, he's going to get smacked in the mouth and being like, oh, I have to try harder. And then he will, you know? But then, like, the same will probably happen like what's happening with Tanu Fuji, where when he has to fight the top rankers, again, he'll be like, oh, this is what it looks like. Like, you know, it's just a guy who, it looks to me like it comes so natural to him that he actually has to get punched in the mouth before he realizes what new effort he needs to put in. Similar to how Kinbozan's coach ripped him after his second or third Basho in Makuuchi and was like, yeah, well, I'm glad he got his butt kicked because maybe now he'll actually try in training, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think it's almost impossible for you to truly understand like the skill level for even the bottom level fighters at this division.
Yeah.
That, like you said, it's like, you know, if he's been kind of able to go by on his own natural skill, this is good. It's good experience.
I think so too. Again, like Myogiru is having a terrible tournament right now, 1-5, but that guy is one of the best KG veterans I've ever seen and stuff like that. And just like, it's this idea that like, it's easy to watch Makuuchi and be like, Myogiru sucks. Get that guy into Juryo. Are you kidding me? 15-0 in Juryo. Easily. If Myogiru drops to Juryo, he's going to absolutely demolish that division. It's that kind of thing that, like, shockingly, because sumo is so meritocratic with their promotions and demotions, it's actually shocking how much better Makuuchi is than Juryo. You know, like, the gap is large.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you'll see somebody go almost undefeated in Juryo, get up to Makuuchi, and just get slapped down hard.
Totally. And even these bottom rankers who rack up big tournaments, look what's happening to Ichi Yamamoto right now. Crushed. Yeah, crushed.
My boy.
Yeah, he crushed down in the low teens of Maegashira, and now he's up at mid Maegashira and getting blasted. Like, it's it's really interesting, but it's crazy the division within the division, you know? Yeah, just to see that kind of stuff. So that's where, in a roundabout way, I'm with you. Someone like Onosho looks more likely of these four, the Koto Noo Onosho, Onosato, Oho. Because of that experience, because we have very much seen that he has the grit and drive to go through people, he's the one who I kind of could expect to keep this going, whereas Oho and Koto Noo, I definitely expect to run out of steam because they almost always do. And Onosato, I just don't expect him to keep this up because he hasn't done it yet. His first tournament in Juryo and his first tournament in Makushita, he had these drop-offs. So I'm kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop with him.
No, yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah. But just speaking of lower divisions, I did want to give a little roundup because actually, dude, there are a ton of storylines in the lower division this time that are really fun to watch. So those of you who are not trash people like us, feel free to tune out if you must. But I recommend listening further. And those of you who are trash people like us and can't get enough sumo, Jonokuchi, I don't necessarily have anything to say about this time. There's one dude who's like brand new. I can't remember his name and is 3-0 and looking good. But I want to jump up to Jonidan because our boy, our new beloved Eastern European Aonishiki, he is 3-0 still, and very much he's looking like what we were expecting. This is the young Ukrainian. I'm hoping he can do it again, rip off another 7-0 and get himself up into Sandanmei and keep this run all the way to Makushita. Hopefully he can do that. But down there, it's going to be hard because there's actually a couple other young guys. Aonishiki's only 19, but there are two more 19-year-olds. Kuae, who I've been really impressed with. He's 19 and 3-0. And he's one of the dudes who, I love the guys whose hair is too short for a top knot. That's what always gets me excited. I'm like, ooh, anytime I see a short-haired guy wrestling, I'm like, what is this? And then beyond that, there's a Filipino Japanese, just like Takayasu, Fujishima. He just turned 19 from being 18 in December, and he's 3-0. So I'm excited that three contenders down in Jonidan are all so young and all looking so good. Sandanmei has similar sort of storylines. Shiroma is a 19-year-old who's 3-0, and this is only his third ever tournament. So he's one of these guys exactly like we're talking about. In his first tournament, he went 7-0 in Jonokuchi and won the Yusho. In Jonidan, he went 7-0, but runner-up. You know, it's not uncommon for these lower divisions to have multiple 7-0 guys. But still, so dude is 3-0. He is 17-0 in his sumo career. He's never lost a fight, and he's only 19 years old, so that's exciting. But also, Waka Takamoto, the eldest of the Waka brothers, is 3-0. I hope he can keep it together. Come on, man, get back out of Sandanmei into Makushita. Always fun to see a Waka doing well. And another one, so there's this guy Tanji, who is only 18, and he's the younger brother of Taiga. But they're interesting because both of them, their mom is Russian and a former gymnast. So like Tanji started out as a gymnast and switched to sumo, which is always interesting because you see that sort of flexibility and that core strength. So he's a really exciting one that I like seeing. He's 3-0 right now. He's been yo-yoing between Makushita and Sandanmei. So I expect him to get out of Sandanmei because it's what he's done every other time, and hope that he can use that to kick on in Makushita this time and start rising up. And then finally Makushita, which is sort of where we get, this is the top of the low divisions, right? Because, you know, the last stop before you get to Sekitori, and Makushita is the time where you kind of, it's not just young up-and-comers rising up, but it's these guys who have fallen from the top divisions with a mix of guys from the young divisions coming up. So it's always really interesting to see Makushita. Onokatsu, I believe this is only his second tournament. He's another Mongolian, so like, unlike the guys I've named so far, which are all teenagers except for Waka Takamoto, Onokatsu is 24, so much older than these other guys, but he's only in his second ever tournament. He's another Mongolian who's come over. He's 3-0. He's looking really good, beating some good guys. As far as young guys, keep an eye out for Wakai Kari. He's looked really good for these young ones coming up. And this is neither a young guy nor a new guy, but Shohoryu, I have a soft spot for dudes from Akita. So I, like, in school, studied at Kokusai Kyoyo Daigaku up in Akita. So I always have a soft spot for Akita-ken, especially because it's in the way north of Japan, like almost as far north as you can get before getting to Hokkaido. The only province above it before Hokkaido is Aomori, which is also another sumo hotbed. But I love it because you and I, whether the audience know this, we are from North Dakota, which is the far northern hinterland of America, and Akita very much felt to me, I'm like, oh, I'm in Japanese North Dakota. Everyone's a farmer and there's always snow on the ground. I know this place.
This feels like home.
This feels like home. So even though he's 28, I'm really excited for Shohoryu. I hope he can keep going and maybe make it to Juryo so that I'd finally have an Akita boy in the Sekitori ranks. But speaking of Sekitori, I forgot to mention this. In Makushita, Wakataka Kage is 4-0. I very much expect Wakataka Kage this time to go 7-0 and win Makushita and get back into Juryo. He's on the march back up, but we all knew he would be, and this is good. I personally think it's great for him that he's getting a second tournament in Makushita, simply so that he can have days off between matches and slowly work that injured leg back into business. And then Juryo, things that are exciting, two things. One, Takeru Fuji is 6-0. He's so interesting. He is purely north-south. This is a man without diversity in his sumo style, but his physicality and aggression are borderline just destructive, like Wakamoto Haru. Like, if you find a way that you can see some Juryo matches, you can actually pay to subscribe to the Sumo Association's YouTube channel, and then you can watch all the lower matches, just if you're looking for a way to do this. There's also, I think it's called Abema, is a subscription-based streaming service that you can get. So if you want to watch these lower matches, go for it. I highly recommend it because there's some good sumo down there. But Takeru Fuji, if you can see him, he blasts through these guys like they stole his lunch money in 5th grade. It's really exciting to watch. And he's a guy whose hair has only just recently gotten long enough for the top knot. But our boy Nishiki Fuji, 5-1, he's in there. He's banging. He's getting the Koto Sho treatment that we talked about, where Koto Sho maybe got his confidence back by dropping to Juryo. I see the same thing helping with Nishiki Fuji. He's getting healthy. He's getting his confidence. It's exciting. He's contending for this Juryo Yusho.
And I'm super excited to hear that because I think he's so good. Like, his first several tournaments, he did so well. Total opposite of what we've seen the last few. And I hope he gets that confidence back, gets back into it, get the rust out, and just comes back dominant.
I agree. And especially the health factor, because he did not look healthy in his last couple tournaments up there. So tons of exciting sumo in the lower division. Tons of exciting sumo in the top division. I'm stoked. I hope all 4 of these contenders at the top keep it going through the end of this. But also our outside candidates. I love that we still have these 4 guys who are these outsiders looking in. So we've kind of got 8 dudes in contention still. Very exciting. Not quite halfway through this. So at this midway point, this 6-day mark, we're almost through the first week. How do you see this playing out? Give me your predictions, Nick.
I would very likely, just to be realistic, give it to Tanu Fuji. As long as he doesn't drop out, but the way he's been fighting, even if, like we said, not 100% dominant, but he's going to roll through a lot of people. But outside of him, it's, to me, clearly feels like Kirishima, Koto Noo Onosato, and it's really tough for me to choose that. I'm hoping it's Kirishima so we can get that Yokozuna promotion. But I think I'm going to go a little outside of that and guess Koto Noo Onosato.
I know, this is crazy. I totally agree. And it's so interesting because Kirishima's battling to try to get the Yokozuna promotion. Koto Noo Onosa's battling to try to get the Ozeki promotion. I believe it's 13 wins and a Yusho, and then that'll put him at 33 and a Yusho over his last 3, because he went 11. Because he went 11 last Basho and 9 the Basho before that, so he was sitting at 20 before this. So if he can get 13 wins in the Yusho, he's a lock for Ozeki. But Kirishima just needs the back-to-back Yushos to get to Yokozuna. But then Tanu Fuji is on the comeback run, and then Asanoyama coming out of nowhere and proving that he's healthy. Just so exciting. I have no idea. To be honest, at this point, maybe I'm overcorrecting from thinking he was still hurt, but Asanoyama's looked so good. He's got that quick tachi-ai where he's so much faster than his opponents that he can almost always get the position he wants, while also sometimes just stunning guys out of the match by hitting them real quick. Forget it. I think Asanoyama can run this one through. I think he's good enough to beat an injured 80% Tanu Fuji. I don't know. So many good storylines. I don't know, but I'm picking Asanoyama.
I think that's a great choice. I haven't seen him fight a whole lot. I didn't watch when he was an Ozeki, so I only have to see what based off of what I've seen the last year or so. Mm-hmm. And it's been fine. Yeah. But again, it's because of the injuries, and he was out for a couple of years. But I'd like to see him consistently run through the other Sanyaku and kind of see how I feel after that. Yes.
He's a guy who, like Takayasu, is never going to be scared of the other Sanyaku. But, we need to see it. That's all.
Yep.
I love it. Can't wait for next day's sumo. If you haven't seen the sumo yet and you were listening to this already, good matches today, a lot of fun. But we will try to maybe come back to you in the day 13-14 range to do a primer right before the end. But even if we don't make it there, we'll see you after the Basho. Regardless, this is going to be an awesome one to watch because it's already so exciting. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you again soon.